Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Really glad to have you here and a guest that I will introduce to you in a second. Really to talk about an area that you know I'm very passionate about, which is the whole world of artificial intelligence. And then within that, the notion of pre-trained AI accelerators. And what we've been finding is that when you go deploy an AI implementation, an AI project with a large global client, the difference between starting from scratch and starting with these accelerators is just immense. And it's so large that it makes projects much more global. It brings returns in faster, and it drives change and adoption much better. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that learning with you. And to do that, I've asked Vikram Mahidhar, who joins me from Boston today. Vikram leads our AI services here at Genpact, and he's been in the space for years. And he also works with universities and certainly works with many of our clients. And I thought it'd be important to have him on this discussion because he can help us unpack a little bit of AI and the work that is happening in the industry today. What's real, what's here, what's today, because we hear all these possibilities in the future, and I think he'll help us do that. And then I actually want to spend a little bit of time kind of unpacking this notion of pre-trained AI accelerators. What does that really mean? How does that really deliver what it does? Before we get started, I thought we'd take a minute to just get to know Vikram personally. And as I said, Vikram's based in Boston. I know him very well. But to you and for you, I'm going to ask Vikram 3 questions. The first question, and these are just quick questions, quick answers. First question is, where did you grow up when you were young?
So first of all, thanks for having me, Sanjay, on LinkedIn Live. I grew up in Mumbai in India. And pretty crowded city, but love the city.
Yeah, for those of you that have been there, it's an amazing spot to be. Second question, what do you do now when you're not working, Vikram?
When I'm not working, I'm truly into a lot of water sports. So you name it, and I'll play with it.
Okay, awesome. That's good to hear. And then my last question to you, which is, if I were to ask some of your friends to describe you in a word or two, what would those words be?
They call me big data guy. Literally many people in their phone book have me as big data guy. So that's my
awesome.
decision.
Okay, if that spot is not taken, I'm sure you're going to go into many of the contact files. Big data boy from Mumbai. And loves water sports. With that, we're going to get started. You know, Vikram, before we, just to get us grounded, before we jump into accelerators, I mean, let's just talk about artificial intelligence itself. And I know you're at the front of that engine, helping clients reimagine existing business processes through the use of AI and actually getting them successfully deployed and up and alive. In that context, can you give me one example of something you've done that you've been directly involved in that is about using AI in a business environment?
Certainly. So Sanjay, I'll start with an example of a CPG company where the problem is around trade promotions. As many of us go and shop at the retail stores, we are used to a lot of promotions. But there's a long process that goes behind it. A CPG company contracts with the retailer and agrees that, say April 1st to April 30th, some product is going to go on sale. And that promotion discount is passed on to the CPG company from the retailer. There's a contract that is created between the CPG company and the retailer. When the promotion is executed, the retailer sends an invoice back to the CPG company, and someone has to compare the contract with that invoice, and also something called proof of performance, which was that buck passed on to the consumer or not. And that is another third-party data from Nielsen or IRI or someone, it comes in. Originally, this process was done manually by hundreds of people for this CPG client. Most importantly, the client was able to only execute 33% of the volume. So the value in terms of mismatch was in tens of millions that was left on the table. And what we did was we took our accelerators based on natural language processing that could read the contracts, in fact, also emails through which the contracts come in, also read through the invoices at the line item level, compare the two and figure out what the leakage was. And as I said, it was in tens of millions of dollars. and that hits the bottom line directly. CFO was super excited about it. And then when you do the three-way match, you find certain amount of leakage there as well. Net, Sanjay, number one, here, value story, because there's money that is being left on the table. Number two, when you use machines, you can do execution at scale. And now, even if the company doesn't go and recover those tens of millions of dollars, they have a lever in terms of
course,
to go and negotiate back. So
okay, so this is a fantastic example because it touches all of us. I mean, you know, I was over the weekend. I went to a store and I bought a bottle of shampoo, which came from you call it CPG, Consumer Product Goods Company, and this would be a manufacturer for that shampoo. And there's all these relationships between discounts and promotions and a variety of things that as consumers we experience at stores anyway. And I think the point you're making is the whole entire set of complex business processes that sit on the back of that one transaction I made, multiplied many times over, that has to be done to be able to net out all of the trade flows and the monies that change hands. And that process is complex, it's difficult, it takes time, it's prone to inaccuracies, and essentially ends up becoming a cost and a top line bleed or a dilution for someone in that value chain. And I think what you're suggesting, and I think you're right, is that through the use of AI and the solution that your team has deployed, you know, in this specific scenario, you've been able, or the team's been able to kind of put together solutions that allow us to identify and do a lot of the work we would otherwise manually either do or probably not even get to, and get it all done. And then the benefits from that are obvious to obviously the entire value chain. So I get that, it's brilliant. I'm glad that you use an example that I could relate to. But then, and then in that game, what is the role of an accelerator and what is this word pre-train? Can you help me understand all that?
That's a great question. So there are three parts in this process as I described, right? One is contract comes in an email. Emails are worded in our own language, right?
Yeah.
So first, somebody has to read that email. So when we use the models to read that email, we already had pre-trained that model. It can read all kinds of emails in different contexts. In this case, we just had to train it for the consumer product context, but you know, it can read, extract information, invoice numbers, contract numbers, etc. The second piece is just extracting information from the contract. Ability to read the contract, you know, party A, party B, who's the contract between, who's liable for what, etc. Models were pre-trained to read that contract and interpret it a priori. The only thing that we had to do is put layers on top of it in terms of the domain, CPG domain, trade promotion domain, etc. How did we, by the way, pre-train these models? Obviously, we've been working on these problems for a while. And now what we've done is we've taken the client data, etc. out. Just the feature engineering that goes behind it has been maintained so that a machine can be trained 50% onwards, not from zero, if you may. And then the third piece was innovative. So same thing.
I think I got it right. And I think what you're saying is, because I've always thought about this, and we all know that there are a number of AI platforms that are available in the industry. But I think what you're saying is, look, there's one thing to read a language, and it's another to understand the nuances of a business process that allows you to interpret it in a way that is specific to that business process. And for, in this case, consumer goods manufacturers or for retail, it's a very different field of action than if it is for a bank that's looking at lending documents. And so the idea, I think, is that instead of just starting with a horizontal platform and then trying to train, and it can probably read words, but reading words and understanding language and semantics is very different. And instead of training it from the get-go and kind of building this thing from ground up, you've got the capability to bring in domain-trained accelerators where the bulk of that heavy lifting is already done. And if you will, in some ways, it's a set of Lego blocks that you can rearrange on a game board and be able to get to a result. Is that kind of what you're trying to drive to?
That's exactly right. See, Sanjay, one more thing that is critical there is the precision. You know, when you take an off-the-shelf API on a language and apply some sort of a search use case, even if you don't get 100% precision, it's okay, right? But when it comes to auditing a transaction, making the two transactions match, you need to make sure that your precision is really good. And to do that, it requires a lot of training on top of anything that's available off the shelf. And that training involves a lot of understanding of the domain, how a consumer product goods company works, how a retailer works, and how the trade promotion process works. So we encapsulated that in a bottle, if you may.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, because we're all used to going on to Google and searching for something and seeing things come up number 1 or number 10 on the list, and we make decisions accordingly. But in a real business context with money on the line and these mission critical applications, that margin of error is very thin. And so your accuracy needs to be high. And so you need to have highly predictive accuracy in deploying anything in the enterprise. And so you need sort of a better starting point for that. And I get the accelerator. Last question for you, though, is tell us what's inside an accelerator. It's kind of a fancy word, pre-trained accelerator. What goes inside it?
It's a fantastic question. So think about it as 3 different layers, okay? The first layer is, let's assume that there are 3 different models that I'm using. One, to extract information. Second, say computer vision model. Second is some form of correction model, which is correcting the language, making the data clean. Third is some form of a classification model, which is, this is quantity, this is price, this is item, whatever it is. It's all combined together. We call it an ensemble. That becomes the base model to read a particular document, say an invoice. Now on top of it, we put domain. For example, it says, say a column header in an invoice says CPM. What does that mean? It's charge per mile, but that's very domain specific, right? Then the third piece is very client specific. Now that client may have its own language or even product items that are very specific to a client. Mac and cheese of brand A or brand B, that belongs to only that client. So we train at 3 different layers, and that becomes pre-trained accelerator. At least the first 2 layers are reusable from client to client. And the first one actually is reusable across industries because it's purely extraction of information with precision.
I love the way you've explained it, and I actually think your approach is fantastic because you built it on layers, and then you've kept the interoperability between layers and then expandability across, which fundamentally all CIOs and CXOs I speak with are at the core looking to deploy AI, but to do it in a way that is scalable within the enterprise and is sustainable in the years to come. And so that's really exciting to hear. Listen, Vikram's been fantastic because you've helped us actually bring to life something that we see a lot of on a day-to-day basis. We work across the globe, but may not be very obvious in the industry, and some of the benefits AI is already providing in a business-to-business environment in areas that kind of almost touches us personally. But also the notion of pre-training accelerators and using that to get a jump start and getting to escape velocity much faster. And then in turn, sort of what is a composition of an accelerator? And thank you for doing that. I know we'll have questions and thoughts. As always from this audience, I love to hear back on feedback, perspectives, ideas, suggestions. Please continue to do so. And Vikram, thank you for joining. It's so much fun to have you here.
Thank you, Sanjay. Always enjoy these sessions. Appreciate it.
Take care for now. Bye-bye.